Hey y'all, it's Dave Peretz, Fund 6.0 and founder of Signal Fund Services. Today, we're going to continue our series on minimum viable venture fund operations with episode 5, Who to Hire in the Back Office. This series is for GPs, LPs, fund operators, service providers, and the founders who are curious how modern venture funds are built and how they operate day to day. In previous episodes, we've covered the why venture funds do what they do, the fiduciary duties, the legal duties, the opportunities that we're seeking to take advantage of, right? We've covered the what they do, some of the jobs that people need to do in order to make LPs happy, to make founders happy, to kind of process the information that you need in a venture fund. Today, we're going to talk about who does all that, right? We've talked about how complex building a modern venture firm is becoming. Even in a fund one at $25 million, you are expected to file your taxes on time, deliver your K-1s to your LPs, report out quarterly, take advantage of the information that's coming into your fund from founders and from the market, make decisions. You're expected to do all of it. You're just going to do it at a different level and sophistication with a different budget and set of resources than, say, $1 billion fund. But the idea is you crawl, walk, run as you're building out these systems and tools. But let's start with thinking about what, at the end of the road, as you become an institutional venture fund, what, say, for instance, a finance and operations team would look like. So I kind of talk about the finance pyramid. At the top, you have strategic value add. Usually that's a CFO, but it's a partner level person that's responsible for the outcomes, right? They are tasked with strategic level thinking, tying multiple parts of the business together, whether it's investor relations, it's macro and markets, it's banks, and it's the founders, it's the operating partners, the venture partners, the value add team. They kind of bring multiple functions of the business together to help make decisions. Below them, you have kind of the core of the managerial part of the finance team. We think of these as controllers or heads. They specify into either accounting or finance, right? Accounting even breaks down even more. You have people that are specific to bookkeeping and accounting, understanding complex transactions. You have folks that are specific to tax and understand the compliance associated with it. You have folks that deal with treasury and making sure that the large sums of monies that funds manage are done safely and, in accordance with, proper protocols and procedures. And that's all completely different from someone who does forecasting and planning and thinking about the future or analyzing deals and the fund model. That function tends to be more finance focused. And the idea is that people come to these jobs from different backgrounds with different skill sets, different degrees. And so it's not just one size fits all, but as you get bigger, you start specializing. And then at the tactical level, as we're hiring people into these functions, you've got your bookkeepers, your staff accountants, your chiefs of staff, your associates. And again, there is some level of differentiation between the types of work they do, whether it's accounting or operations or finance. Okay, so as an emerging manager, you are tasked with building out a complete finance team to cover all of the finance and ops parts. You're also thinking about marketing and people and talent and all these other business functions, but you've got to build out a complete finance team. The problem is you have limited resources, right? And in a fund one, fund two, as you're building your LP base, as you're building your product market fit in the ecosystem, as you're attracting founders, you can't do everything all at once. You can't boil the ocean. So you have to think about it. And what I kind of challenge GPs to think about is you don't need a CFO, percent of a CFO like 4 times a year. You need like 30% of a finance director 4 to 5 times a year. You need a controller, probably like 20% of their time, 6 to 8 times a year. And then kind of work that down through the bottom of the pyramid. You're going to need a lot of associate and accountant time because that's where a lot of the tasks lay. Right. And so you've got to figure out how, with your resource stack, how to kind of get that level of expertise, the controls, the checks, and then the actual just people doing the task. How do you get all of that done? Well, modern venture funds have an option. They can kind of buy, borrow, or build. Service providers have come up with pretty good scopes of work. They figured out how to automate and streamline to to systematize and even outsource some of those basic bottom level of the pyramid functions, the brute force jobs, the journal entry, the saving down documents, the kind of cleaning up data and inserting it into the right tool so it can be used later for analysis. Like a lot of our outsourced service providers and fractional CFOs, we've figured out how to do that work really well and systematize it, right? Audit and tax, in some ways, they're not exactly your controller. They're not there to make sure everything is correct, but they do provide some of that higher level job skill that's involved with, reviewing financial statements, ensuring that process and procedures are followed, ensuring taxes, which are kind of critical, are paid on time, and everyone's K1s are correct and go out the door on time. Like all of that is a higher level skill. But again, you're just getting access to the jobs, the activities to be done, not necessarily the skill sets or the experience or the personal coaching from any of these senior level people. And so, as an emerging manager, you're kind of left with a big gray spot kind of to fill for all of the other skill sets that you need. Besides just the basic accounting, basic audit, and basic tax, you have finance needs, you have projections, a fund model, scenario planning. You need to keep track of your portfolio data so you can allocate your time, your money, and your social capital in the right way to the portfolio. And so you need someone to help you think through all of that. And if you don't have either a team member or a fractional team member, the GPs have to cover down on this. So what we kind of recommend for everyone when you're just starting out trying to solve this problem, start with a chief of staff, right? Think a chief of staff gives you optionality early days, a person that you trust, that learns quickly, that has the interest and ambition to try multiple parts of the business, that attack problems and solve them and take ownership of it. Like that's a great first hire as you're building out your team. It gives you optionality as your firm grows, as that person grows, to kind of fit them into one of the other roles that eventually you will need as you grow, right? And so as you're thinking about who to hire, that first hire, we really recommend a chief of staff, someone who can kind of cover all three parts of the role. They can act as a proxy for you. They can stand in your place and handle meetings, take notes, respond to basic questions, and kind of give you extra leverage and time. They can handle some of the other projects that need to be done in an early stage firm that don't just fit neatly into one specific job function and one specific job description, but they're multifaceted. And then they're also very detail oriented, like the traffic control cop or an air traffic controller can kind of help manage the information flow and all of the deal paperwork and the LP paperwork and the service providers for the GPs. This really frees GPs up to spend more time on LP relationships and founder relationships and adding value to the portfolio. All right. So if you'd like to continue this conversation with us, we'll put some of our baseball cards below of different personality types that we see filling back office roles. We did a big study and we will be talking about it next week where we talk about the timeline. So now we've talked a little bit about the who and maybe what your first hire looks like. We're going to show you what a timeline of hiring looks like for an emerging venture fund. We've done a LinkedIn analysis. We've looked at about 120 venture funds. We observed who they hired, where they came from, what jobs they had, how long they were in those positions, what schools they went to, and we came up with a really good understanding of how the modern venture fund has hired and evolved over the last couple of years. And we'll pull back the curtain and explain that to you next week. All right, talk to you then. See ya. Bye.